Some childhood memories never fade, no matter how hard you try to bury them. In this episode, we hear two chilling true stories told by people who were far too young to understand what they were seeing. I was raised by my grandmother because my mom was very young when she had us. I had 3 siblings, and most of the time I only went to my mom's house if I got in trouble at school or if my grandmother needed a break. That summer weekend, though, I went to my mom's place just to stay over. It was only me, my mom, and my youngest sister. My other siblings weren't there. The house itself was big, a 3-bedroom home with a large backyard. When you walked in, there was the living room, then the dining room, the bathroom, my mom's room, the kitchen, and finally, the girls' bedroom at the back of the house. Our room was right next to the backyard. There was even a door in our bedroom that led straight outside. The day felt normal. Nothing strange happened at first. When night came, my sister and I laid down in our bed. The way the bed was positioned still bothers me to this day. Our heads were directly beneath the window, just inches from the glass. I remember feeling like something in the house was off, like the air itself felt heavier, but it wasn't overwhelming enough to make me panic, at least not yet. Then we heard it. At first, it sounded like a bird, a high-pitched screech somewhere outside, but it didn't stop. It grew louder, sharper, and more aggressive. The sound began to change. It wasn't bird-like anymore. It was mixed with something else, almost like yelling, but not human. It was the most disturbing sound I've ever heard in my life, and even now, I can't fully describe it. I just know that if I ever heard it again, I would recognize it instantly. My sister looked at me to see if I was hearing it too. She needed confirmation that she wasn't imagining it. I looked back at her. I was 12 years old, and she had just turned 8. It was just the two of us in that room. I knew I had to be brave. I had to protect her, even though I was terrified myself. I slowly gathered the courage to look toward the window. We had black curtains, not blackout curtains, but thick enough to dim the light. They weren't completely solid either, which meant you could faintly see outside if you stared long enough. I lifted my head and looked. That's when I saw them. 2 red, glowing eyes, staring straight back at me. I dropped down immediately, my heart racing. For a moment I told myself it couldn't be real. I looked again, just to be sure. The eyes were still there, unmoving, watching. At the same time, the screeching grew louder, closer, more intense. I grabbed my sister and ran to my mom's room. I shook her awake and tried to explain, but she sat up and told us she didn't hear anything. She said we were imagining it and told us to go back to sleep. I stared at my sister, who was visibly shaking. I didn't want to scare her more, so I held it together and told her we'd go somewhere else. We went to my brother's room at the front of the house. We laid down on his bed, staring at the ceiling in silence. That's when we heard something I'll never forget, the sound of massive wings. Not flapping lightly, but pushing air with force. I could hear the pressure beneath them, the whoosh of something enormous moving through the night. Then came the sound of something landing on the porch. My brother's room overlooked the front of the house. He didn't have curtains, only blinds. I slowly lifted them, just enough to look. I couldn't see a full shape, but I could still make out 2 red lights near the window. The eyes were there again. My sister started crying. I knew we had to disappear. I didn't want whatever it was to know we were watching it. I pulled the blanket over both of us and whispered that we were going to crawl to the bathroom. In my mind, the bathroom was safe, no windows, nowhere for it to look in. We crawled on the floor, shaking, and hid in the bathtub. We stayed there for minutes that felt like hours. Eventually, the sounds stopped. The wings were gone, the eyes were gone, exhaustion took over, and we fell asleep, curled up in the tub. The next morning, my mom found us there. She asked why we were sleeping in the bathroom. We didn't answer. We just looked at each other and silently agreed to never talk about it again. 6 years passed. I never told anyone until one night when I was swapping ghost stories with a friend. I finally spoke the words out loud. When I finished, she asked me a question that sent chills through my body. Have you ever heard of the Mothman? I hadn't. That night, I fell into a rabbit hole. A humanoid creature, tall, winged, red glowing eyes, said to appear before death, tragedy, or disaster. Many people believed it wasn't evil, that it was a warning. I called my sister. We hadn't spoken about that night since we were children. All I said was, "Do you remember?" She told me she remembered it vividly, but had convinced herself it was a nightmare. 2 months after that encounter, my mom and my step-grandfather died on the same day, 30 minutes apart. His passing was expected. Hers wasn't. It was a sudden accident. After that, death seemed to follow our family for years. Grandparents, loss after loss. We eventually accepted that what we saw may not have come to hurt us. It came to warn us. When I was a child, my siblings and I spent a lot of time at my uncle's house. My mom and my uncle were very close, and he had 3 kids of his own, so it was always lively and loud. At night, my uncle loved telling scary stories. Stories about brujas, witches who could turn into birds. One night, he casually mentioned that the house was haunted, and that a woman had died there long ago. I assumed he was just trying to scare us. The house was old, built sometime in the 1800s. It had creaky wooden floors that echoed whenever someone walked upstairs. For some reason, I could never sleep there. Every morning, I would wake up early and hear footsteps climbing the stairs, always going toward the upstairs bathroom. The strange part was that all the kids were asleep, and I knew no one was walking around. I told my aunt. She brushed it off. I told my mom. She told me to pray. Eventually, I told my cousin, and she admitted she heard it too. One night, she saw a dark figure coming from the bathroom, standing in the doorway, watching her. When she looked again, it was gone. The basement was worse. It felt heavy, wrong, like something was always present. One night, while everyone else was upstairs, I heard movement down there. I thought it was my uncle, until he walked in from outside moments later. No one wanted to talk about it, but everyone felt it. One night, my cousin woke up screaming. She said something grabbed her ankle, pulled it. No one was there. Years later, even after different family members moved in and out, the experiences continued. Footsteps, shadows, a hunched woman seen in mirrors, red eyes. Neighbors claimed the house felt like it was staring at them. Even now, the house sits empty. My uncle still owns it. He says it feels like something is waiting. Some places don't let go.